exam B. So in this video, we are going to talk about EF CODD rules in DBMS. So EF CODD rule in DBMS are one of the important topic that you should read about your IT exams for the government sector. So now let's quickly jump into the topic. So the topic is EF CODD rule. EF CODD rule also is known as the father of DBMS, and it proposed 12 rules. Basically, there are 13 rules because the number starts from 0. So there are 13 rules, but we popularly call them as 12 rules. So these rules are basically called as EF CODD's 12 commandments, which a DBMS has to follow in order to be a good DBMS. Keeping that all in mind, we will now discuss the rules one by one. So the rule 0 is the foundation rule, and it says that the DBMS has to be able to manage to store the data in it entirely through its relational capabilities. So as we know that our database management system is relational in nature, so the first rule says that the data that this particular DBMS is going to have, the DBMS should be able to manage and store the data efficiently in its relational capabilities. Now the rule number 2 says rule of information. Rule of information means that rule where the informations are stored, the metadata should also be known. Okay, so here it goes like if user defines any data or metadata, it is also important to store the value as an entity in the table set. Okay, so whatever data we are going to have, that is not only enough, we need to have a good command over the metadata as well. So rule of information is like we have to get the entire information at one place and should be able to store the data in forms of relation again. Rule number 2 says rule of guaranteed access. So whenever you have database, it will be accessed. So make sure that your database is accessible and it is strictly accessible. Okay, and the thing like the use of pointers to access data logically is strictly forbidden. Nobody should be able to use pointers to access the data, because if that will happen, there will be security issues. Also, the data should be atomic in nature. Whatever entities are there should be atomic in nature, and the table, primary key, and everything that you have as in row and column should be represented properly. This is the rule of guaranteed access. Then rule of systematic null value support is like the null values are a special kind of values where we do not have any kind of data, then we put our data as null. So there should be a uniformity in considering the missing information. Whenever the information is missing, we should consider it as a null value. So it should be treated as a data type, and you have to take care of the null value support as well in your database. Now coming to the fourth rule, it is the rule of active and online relational catalog. So here we spoke about metadata in rule number 2. So there is something extension to it. So here the metadata is about the data that the database is holding. So metadata is the data about data, and the active online catalog that stored the metadata is called data dictionary. Okay, so now there is a relationship between the metadata and the data dictionary. So the data dictionary is accessible only by the authorized user who have the required privilege, and the query language used for accessing the database should also be used for accessing the data dictionary. So there should be an active and online catalog, which is data dictionary. It should be also accessible by the same query language which is used to access the database. Rule number 5, rule of comprehensive data sublanguage. Here what happens, a single robust language should be able to define integrity, constant, views, data manipulation, transactions, and authorization. Means the languages which are using, like let's say SQL, if we are using, it should be uniform throughout all the kind of operation. So there should no violation in order for the comprehensive data sublanguage. Rule number 6, rule of updating views. So here views should reflect the updates of their respective base table and vice versa. So we know that there are something called as views. They are the virtual table created on the top of our normal table, and it is logical table which is actually show the restricted data, but it should be updated frequently as per the base table. So views should not be like they are not updated, they should be updated. Now rule number 7 is rule of set level insertion, updation, and deletion. So there should no anomaly when we are doing any kind of operation of insertion, updation, or deletion. Rule number 8 is rule of physical data independence. So we know that in our architecture we have 3 levels: the physical, the logical, and the view level. So every layer we have to keep the independence. So in order to make sure whenever we are doing any changes in the physical level, it is not reflecting to the end user, that is called as physical data independence. Similarly, in rule number 9, it is rule of logical data independence, where if we want to do any changes in the logical data independent data layer, it should not reflect or let's say it should not affect the view or the physical layer. Then rule number 10 says the rule of integrity independence. So here integrity constraints which we apply on our metadata and our data should remain as it is and should not be like uh, they should not be violated. There should be in independence when they are defined. In order to have any kind of changes in the database management system, they should not be violated. Then the rule number 11 is the rule of distribution independence. So distribution independence is like whenever you store the data in the physical storage, there is no alteration that requires if the physical data is centralized or distributed. So that is the case with the distribution of the thing. Now, rule of non-subversion. So here any row obeys the security and integrity constraint imposed. So row should be following those constraints and no special privileges are applicable to any of the specified rules. Okay. So these are the 12 rules of EF code. You should learn about these rules and be like knowing about the definition of each rule. They can come in your exam, and these rules are actually the basic of the DBMS. So you should be able to understand them all. Now, with our campaign that is CPSS, we are making people preparing 50% faster with iXambi. So do check out our website, that is www.ixambi.com. Also, you can reach out to us if in case you have any query at hello@ixambi.com. If this video was informative and you gained some knowledge, please do hit like button. Also press the subscribe button in order to get the regular updates from our site. So that was all for this time. See you in the next